Fantastic idea. It's just boom, boom, boom with back-to-back chocolatey goodness of information. I agree. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go on to the next one. Hi, everyone. I'm attorney Aiden Durham with 180 Law Co. in Colorado, and welcome back to All Up in Your Business. We're going to do another round of responding to comments and answering your questions. Before we get into it, be sure to like, subscribe, share, check the description, free downloads, resources, all that fun stuff. Now let's dive right in because you guys ask a lot of great questions, and I want to cram as many into this as I can. All right. Aiden, I inherited 2 homes I want to put in the rental market. Should I do a separate LLC for each or one for both? Ideally, you want to have each home in its own separate LLC. That way they're each insulated from liabilities of the other. If you have multiple properties in one LLC, then if liability or legal issues come up with one, it puts the others at risk. So best thing to do, separate houses, separate LLCs. Great video. Thanks. So if your corporation does have another business under a DBA, do you have to pay yourself from both businesses 2 separate checks or just from the main corporation 1 check? So the DBA in the legal sense isn't really a separate business. Tax-wise, it's all going to go to the corporation. So you don't have to pay yourself separately from both businesses. I guess you can, but tax-wise and liability-wise, it doesn't make a difference. Thank you for your videos. You're welcome. My question is, I'm a sole proprietor operating under my own name. I want to open a business banking account, so I plan to get an EIN. If I later decide to register a DBA trade name, do banks typically just let you add that to the account? Usually, yeah, so you're a sole proprietor operating as under a DBA or a trade name. You're still a sole proprietorship, so the entity isn't changing. It's just the name of the business that's changing. It's not even an entity. Actually, it's a sole proprietorship. So I believe it will probably vary from bank to bank, but most banks should allow you to just change the name of the business on the account and not require you to open a new account. You stated the first step is to create a business, and you specifically said LLC or corporation. I think this is in one of my videos about, starting a business. So does that mean that one cannot open a business bank account or establish business credit as a sole proprietorship because there's not an entity that's separate from yourself? So you can open a business bank account for a sole proprietorship. That's fine. But you wouldn't really establish business credit as a sole proprietorship because as a sole proprietorship, there is no business. It's you, taxes and credit cards, all of that stuff you could still have an EIN for it, but it still comes back to you as an individual and your social security number. But a bank account, you could still open one for a sole proprietorship. But you don't need a physical address in the state in which you form your LLC for purposes of the application form. No, you don't. You can form an LLC in any state. I'm not aware of any state that requires that you have a business address in that state. I can live in California and form an LLC in Colorado using my California address, vice versa. The only physical address you do need in the state is a registered agent address. So if you're not physically located in the state where your LLC is formed, then you would need to get a registered agent. A corporate registered agent service is great. Someone who's physically located in that state. I will link in the description to some of my favorite corporate registered agent services if you guys want help with that. I'm a little confused if I do need a new EIN or not. I dissolved my LLC in California, then formed a new LLC with the same name in Virginia. Do I need a new EIN? So again, we're looking at taxes versus banking and all these other things. The IRS, as far as federal taxes go, they're not going to care as long as you were taxed as a sole proprietorship, a single member LLC. You can still use the same EIN for a different business, which is what you've done. If you've dissolved the first LLC and formed a new one, you've created a new business. But the IRS doesn't necessarily care. However, banks might, because it is a new entity. So you may need a new EIN for banking purposes or for other, accounting or maybe state tax related purposes. What kind of LLC do you recommend for a trade show event management biz that travels to different states? So there's really only one kind of LLC. I mean, some states, I guess, have series LLCs and different versions of LLCs, but the ones that I'm talking about, there's really only one kind of LLC. You can have it set up in different ways, like member managed, manager managed. That completely depends on who's involved in your business and how you want it to operate. But with regard to traveling to different states, I recommend registering an LLC in the state where you reside, where you pay state income taxes, the address, the location that you use for your taxes. Wherever you're doing business doesn't necessarily impact the income taxes that you're going to pay. So just register in the state where you're located. If you're doing a long event that might last a few months in a different state, you may need to register as a foreign entity and get authorization to do business in that state. But the actual LLC itself, typically we just want it to be registered in whatever state you live in. Her voice is crazy annoying, but for some reason I can't stop listening. It's like a like-dislike relationship. Thanks. But come on, you guys. I don't know that I would say crazy annoying. Sometimes it can be kind of annoying. I get annoyed listening to myself sometimes. But whatever, as long as you're watching and maybe hit that thumbs up button and share every once in a while, that's good enough for me. Wouldn't the apple for Apple be a copyright and a trademark? So this was on my video, is my logo a copyright or a trademark or both? Yeah, the apple for Apple would be considered a copyright and a trademark, but they act in two totally different ways. As a copyright, someone can't take that Apple image, that exact image, and use it really in any purpose unless it falls under fair use or they have other authorization or license to do so. But I can draw my own picture of an apple and register that as a copyright or use it however I want to. As a trademark, though, I can't really use any similar version of an apple drawing in connection with any goods or services that are related to what Apple sells. So even if I drew my own apple and I could register it as a copyright or use it in the copyright sense, I probably still wouldn't be able to use it as a trademark if, for example, I was selling laptops or technology products. Hey, Aiden. So I have a cleaning business, sole proprietorship. Would you say that my industry is in one of those gray areas? This is on my video about independent contractors versus employee classification. I have a lady that helps me with houses. We each have a few together, some separate. We buy our own supplies and work under the business name. So that would be one of those gray areas. A lot of industries, there's kind of this general practice of hiring people as independent contractors, and people will say, well, this is how everyone else in my industry does it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it's okay or the proper thing to do. If you're treating someone as an employee, then they should be classified as an employee, even if everybody else is calling them an independent contractor in their business. Ultimately, it comes down to control and how much say you have in the person's work and schedule, a handful of other factors. But to answer your question, yeah, that is one of those gray areas. So I would definitely recommend talking to an attorney who is licensed in your state for more information on whether you're properly classifying that person. Can I not take out a payroll service for myself as a single member LLC? If you're taxed as a sole proprietorship, so you haven't elected to be taxed as a corporation, then you shouldn't be paying yourself on payroll because you're not paying payroll taxes. You're paying self-employment taxes. You should be paying yourself just as member distribution. Are you available for hire though? Yes, I am. I learned so much from you. Your energy is everything and you make it easy to understand. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, I am available for hire though. Depends on what you need and where you're located. Trademark registration, copyright registration. I can work with anybody anywhere. More state-specific things like forming an LLC or drafting contracts, that kind of thing. Typically, I can only work with people who are in Colorado, or if their business is in Colorado or has some connection to Colorado. So for a manager-managed LLC, can the manager open up lines of credit and loans for the business, or does the owner still have to do this? And in this case, whose credit is used if it's a starter business? So it depends on what authorization and restrictions are placed on the manager, but kind of by default, yeah, the manager is the agent of the LLC and has the authority to act on its behalf in legally binding situations. So typically, unless there's some restriction explicitly not allowing it, a manager can establish lines of credit and loans for the business. Whose credit or whose social security number is used, I guess that's kind of up to the people involved. It can be either, I suppose. Very good work here. Thank you. Thank you. I'm planning to form an LLC. I think it's pretty straightforward if I follow the procedures. I don't necessarily need an attorney. Assuming I do my due diligence, am I missing anything? Any thoughts? Yes, if you are doing your due diligence, researching things that need to be done, familiarizing yourself with the requirements in your state. If you're forming a single member LLC, in most states, it's not that complicated, and it is totally possible to do it without an attorney. If you have business partners, if there's multiple people involved, though, forming the LLC might be easy, but preparing a good operating agreement to suit your needs is going to be more complex. So in that case, I definitely recommend working with a lawyer. But yeah, for a single member LLC, if you're doing your research and your due diligence, there's nothing wrong with doing it yourself or using one of these filing services online. They typically do a fine job too. If you're interested, I'll link to a few of the online LLC business filing services that I've worked with and that I'm pretty familiar with, and the ones that I like. Thanks so much for all your valuable information. I am wanting to start my own online business. Watching your videos have been so helpful. I have a question. If I open, God, these planes are so loud. If you guys haven't noticed, I live right near the airport in San Diego, and these sounds are every day. Get used to it, but man, does it pick up on the mic. If I open my business as a sole proprietor because I'm just getting started and it ends up going really well down the road, I need employees to help, can I switch my sole proprietorship to an LLC, or do you recommend just opening up as a single member LLC? I think it's totally fine. You know, it always kind of depends on your industry and how risky your industry might be, but in a lot of situations, I think it's totally fine to start operating as a sole proprietorship. If this is your first time being in business, first time you're starting your own business, start as a sole proprietorship. Make sure you like it. Make sure it's a viable idea. Make sure it's profitable. And then if things are working out and you are liking it and going the way that you want it to, then you can always form an LLC and kind of convert your business to an LLC later on. I don't make more than $1,000 a month, and I don't want to make more than that. What should I do? Sole proprietor. I'm assuming you're asking, should I stay a sole proprietor? If you're not making more than $1,000 a month and you don't plan to, again, it depends on the industry and the type of business that you're in. But I mean, you don't have to, even if you're making $1 million a month, you don't have to operate as anything else but a sole proprietor. That's totally fine. But if it's just like a kind of small side business, yeah, sure, sole proprietorship is fine. Again, get insurance though. This is a comment to my last video where I was answering your questions and responding to comments. Fantastic idea. It's just boom, boom, boom with back-to-back chocolatey goodness of information. I agree. Boom, boom, boom. Let's go on to the next one. If you have a single member LLC online business and you operate from your home, are you required to have insurance since it's a LLC? No, and you're not required. I mean, you would be required if you have a mortgage. Most lenders require that you have homeowners insurance or renter's insurance if you're renting, but there's no real requirement that you have business insurance unless you're required to under a contract with somebody else. But even if it's not required, it's still a really good idea if you have, your computer, or if you have inventory, if you're selling products online, if you have inventory in your home, if you have any business assets or equipment in your home, your homeowner's insurance or your renter's insurance might not cover that if there's a fire or if someone breaks in and steals things. Your regular home insurance may not cover your business things. So check with your current insurer to see if it does. And if it doesn't, then take out whatever policies you need to make sure your business assets are going to be covered. And depending on your industry, again, you might need other coverage like professional liability insurance. So it's a good idea to talk to your insurance broker to see what your current policies already cover and what you might need to add to make sure all your business operations are covered in the same way. Am I supposed to put the business name as the applicant rather than my own individual name? If I'm forming an LLC, does that mean I need to form the LLC first before putting my business name on the application as the applicant? This was in regard to one of my trademark videos. So they're asking applicant on the trademark application. It depends on who's going to be using the trademark. If your business is the one using the trademark, then the business should be the applicant. If you're using the trademark, then it would be your name. But yeah, if you're operating as an LLC and the LLC is going to be the one using the trademark, then the LLC should be the applicant and the LLC should exist before you submit the application, because otherwise you're having someone who doesn't currently exist as the applicant, and that's bad. Informative tips. This reminds me, as a business owner in the early stages of launching, is tax higher as an LLC or a sole proprietorship? If we're talking single member LLC, it's exactly the same. A single member LLC is taxed as a sole proprietorship in the eyes of the IRS, so there's literally no difference. What type of lawyer do I need on police brutality? Good question. I don't know exactly. I would think probably some kind of civil rights lawyer would be able to help with police brutality issues. I have a couple of questions if you don't mind answering. If you trademark a name and logo, does that mean no one else can use the exact name, logo for the same goods and services as well as any other goods and services? Would they be allowed to use it if they change something about it, such as the color or font? If I were to trademark a name and logo but not copyright it, does that mean someone else could register it for a copyright and use it however they want? All right. So first question, if you have a trademark for your name or logo, that means nobody else can use it in a confusingly similar manner. And typically that means that applies to the trademark itself as well as the goods or services with which you are using it. So if you used Apple, so let's say you're selling computers and you have an Apple logo. No one else can use a similar variation of that Apple logo in connection with the sale of computers or other related goods and services. So typically this would apply to most kind of technology items. It also makes a difference though, because Apple in this example specifically is such a well-known trademark and so recognizable and famous. They would probably have an issue with it if you were using their logo or change the color of their logo and were using it to sell food. Because I don't know, it's not out of the realm of possibility that Apple might sell food at some point if they're not already doing that. But the thing with the trademark has to do with confusing similarity. So nobody else can use your trademark or something that's similar to it in a way that might confuse consumers. So if you were to register the trademark but not copyright it, does that mean someone else could register it for copyright and use it however they want? No, only the creator. When it comes to copyrights, only the creator, the author of it, has the ability to register the copyright or own those copyrights. Someone could take your logo and make their own drawing of it and create a new work out of it and register the copyright for that. But then again, going back to what I just said, even if they did register the copyright, they may still not be able to use it as a trademark because it could still be confusingly similar to your trademark. The important kind of distinction here with copyrights and trademarks: copyrights belong to the creator or the author of the work, whereas trademark rights belong to whomever is using it as a trademark. Hi, awesome video. I'm starting a pickup drop-off transportation services and was wondering what kind of insurance would I need other than car insurance. So first off, general liability insurance is typically a good idea for all businesses. I would check with your car insurance company to see if it would cover your business operations. Many car insurance policies won't cover things that have to do with your business use of your car. So with the items that you're picking up and dropping off, if you're in an accident and those items get damaged, because those are part of a business, your car insurance may not cover it. So you might need additional insurance or some other kind of policy to cover the business use and the business operations that have to do with your car. My boyfriend wants me to get an LLC, but I don't even have a business, just a few ideas. Should I pick one and get an LLC or just start out and see if one gets off the ground? Is your boyfriend a lawyer? Maybe he shouldn't be giving you legal advice. Yeah, if you don't have a business, what's the point in forming an LLC? And if you're not sure what you want to do in your business, again, you don't need to operate as an LLC. Start the business first, see if you like it, see if you're making money, and then operate as an LLC later on. Is it difficult? Does it have an impact on the alter ego idea when the name of the LLC is also my name LLC? No. That's fine. It won't have any impact on the alter ego doctrine or piercing the corporate veil. Having your name in your LLC name on its own isn't going to put you at a risk of personal liability with an LLC. I subbed because of your expensive graphics. That made me laugh. Thank you. Also, I just filed for an LLC and I'm going to open a bank account, but I have some startup costs that I need to deposit from me personally. So how do I get it back? How do I write on a check? Is it a write-off when I give the money back to myself? So these are what we call member contributions. When you're putting money into your LLC to get it started, that's a member contribution. So how do you make that contribution back? Typically, we get that back in the form of distributions. We're putting money into the business with the idea of generating a profit, and then we take that profit to pay ourselves in the form of a member distribution. And yeah, you can just write on the check member distribution. But it's not a write-off. No, member distributions aren't tax deductible. They aren't write-offs. It's a wash. The IRS the member contributions aren't taxable and member distributions aren't taxable. It all comes down to the taxable income of the business in the end. Do you have to pay taxes for a DBA? For example, I live in North Carolina and state tax is $525. My books cost $15. Will I have to pay taxes for each profit that I'll make? Yeah, any kind of business has to pay income taxes. Doesn't matter if you're a DBA, sole proprietorship, LLC, corporation. The taxes might look different. But yeah, everyone, for the most part, has to pay income tax on their business income. I applied for a multi-member LLC, but they called it a partnership. Do you know if that word is used interchangeably? There's difference, but my IRS letter says I should be completing Form 1065. So for federal taxes, the IRS doesn't recognize LLCs. The LLCs are formed at the state level. So when there are multiple members, they are taxed as a partnership and the IRS looks at it as a partnership. Same idea with single member LLCs. They are taxed as a sole proprietorship and the IRS considers them a sole proprietorship. If none of the additional questions on the TEAS Plus applied, will you be penalized for not answering them? So this is in regard to the trademark application, the TEAS Plus application that has all these miscellaneous statements that you have to answer if they apply to you. If none of them apply to you, then you don't have to address them. You leave them blank and you won't be penalized. So if I'm filing the trademark in standard characters, can the specimen be with my stylized logo? Yep, it can. If you are registering a trademark as a standard character mark, your specimen with a standard character, you can use it however you want in whatever design or style you want. So the specimen can have the trademark in a logo. I want to file for trademark now under my name, but I will wait until January to set up an LLC in California to avoid franchise tax. Can I change my name on trademark owner to my LLC later on when set up? Yes, you can You can't change the name to an LLC, but you can assign the trademark registration or the application. There are some restrictions on doing that time-wise, but the simple answer is yes, you can assign the trademark to your LLC later on. Can we transfer ownership while the trademark application is still pending, or can we only transfer ownership once it's fully registered? Very similar to the last question that I answered. So you can assign ownership while the application is pending. There are some restrictions on that in certain instances, but the simple answer is yes, you can. And same for once it's fully registered, you can assign it to a business successor or to another party. What qualifies for the date of first use anywhere? So this is a trademark question again. On the application, we have to indicate the date of first use anywhere and the date of first use in commerce. Typically, for most people, this is the same date. So I pulled up some info from the trademark office, the USPTO website, so I could get this language exactly correct. But so the date of first use anywhere is the date when the goods were first sold or transported, or when the services were first rendered under the trademark. The date of first use in commerce, however, is when those things happened, but in a type of commerce that may lawfully be regulated by U.S. Congress. So this would come up, let's say, if you had your business in another country. The United States government doesn't govern that business in a foreign country, so that wouldn't be considered use in commerce, but that is a use anywhere. Or if you used your trademark only in intra-state business. So if you have maybe a local business, you've only served people in your state, that wouldn't be considered in commerce as far as the USPTO and US Congress goes. All right, folks, that's all for this episode. Lots of great questions again. Like, subscribe, share, check the description for resources, some of the things that I mentioned in this video, and I'll link to a few other related videos. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm Aiden Durham, and I'll see you next time.